Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content I've been putting up, be sure to subscribe so you always know when a new video pops up. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time we're covering the third part of the Dark Knight storyline. After dealing with Riel's crazy mother and returning to Ishgard, a lot changes in the city. The separation between the factions has faded for the most part, and with the Dragon Song War being over, things are looking up. However, Sudurgu always knows that there's always somebody doing something bad no matter how good things look, and as Dark Knights, it's your job to keep all the criminals in check. But first you have to find them, so the two of you head out to patrol the city. As you pass Fortemp's Manor, you can't help but to think about everything that brought you to this point, and all the people you failed to save along the way. Cid and Riel walk up, finding you lost in thought just staring at the manor. Since they don't know about your odd history in Ishgard, you fill them in, but while you're talking, your soul crystal breaks in half. A strange young boy with long hair walks up claiming to be responsible. He calls himself Mist, although Cid doesn't believe him. Mist is a name given to orphans in the Broom, but this boy looks like a young nobleman. To be honest, he looks like what you would get if Haurchefant and Yselle had a son. Mist claims to have a power that he wants to use to help people, but that power requires a lot of ether. He was trying to draw ether from nearby and accidentally drew some out of your soul crystal. He promises to give it back, but first he wants to use it for a bit. The Warrior of Light isn't sure, and Cid just wants to stab the kid so you can get your ether back, but Riel is curious to find out who exactly he wants to help. He doesn't have a specific person in mind. The world is so full of sadness that if he can help anyone, that will make at least a small difference. Since he seems to be honest, Riel wants to help him find someone to help. But Cid, being the voice of reason, thinks helping the weird kid with the unknown power who stole your soul crystal's ether will probably cause you to have a bad day. But since it's your soul crystal, he leaves the decision up to you. And being the idiot that you are, you decide to help the boy as long as he agrees to fix your crystal once he's done. He promises that he will, so you all split up to find someone in need. You come across a woman named Millie who's having an argument with a carpenter who won't have his crew do any more work until they're paid, despite the woman's claims that the money is coming. It doesn't help that with the new regime in Ishgard, having a statue restored for a woman who is related to a former member of the Heavens Ward is not a priority. While she doesn't know if her cousin was really a part of all the terrible things the Archbishop did, she does know that he had wanted the statue of Saint Valoroyant, a former Azure Dragoon who had forced Nidhogg back generations ago, restored after Dravanians destroyed it. It was his personal mission to have it repaired, but since his death, people don't want to get involved with the project. Since he was family, Millie plans on completing it for him, but without money, it's looking impossible, and now she doesn't know what to do. Not sure whether Mist's power can help her or not, since you don't even know what they do, you find him and let him know about the woman. He thinks he can help her, so you take him to her just so you can see what he can do. The first thing he asks her is if she wants to see her cousin again, which who wouldn't want to see a lost loved one again if someone offered, so Mist tells her to think of how he looked and sounded, then head off to a secluded spot and wait. To me, this sounds like a recipe for ending up with your photo on the back of a milk carton, but since she's curious, Millie agrees to wait for Mist in a secluded garden near the tribunal that both she and her cousin enjoyed. He sends you with her, while he goes to get Cid and Riel so you all can see what he can do. When Mist shows up to the meeting spot, Millie is shocked to see that not only did he walk up with Cid and Riel, but her cousin as well. And since you killed him, he's a man that you know to be very, very dead. But he talks, acts, and even sounds very much alive. He comforts his cousin, however being a member of the Heavens Ward makes the city a little bit unsafe for him, and Millie wants you to help him get out of the city. Cid agrees to help, but he wants you to meet him at Falcon's Nest because he has a lot that he wants to talk to you about. Mist warns that the further you get Ignace away from Millie, the weaker he'll get, so you need to be quick. You fully understand what he means when you see a swirling pool of dark ether replace the night. Mist lets you know that he can give memories form, but after a while the magic fades. Think of Amarat and the creature's image self recreated in the ancient city, and you have an idea of what the boy is doing, but on a much, much smaller scale. What Emmett did seems to be permanent. Mist's memory clones are not. Once the spell is undone, the summoned memory turns back into ether, and since it's your ether, you reabsorb it. Now that you have your ether back, Sid snaps at Mist for doing something as stupid as summoning a member of the Heavens Ward in the middle of Ishgard. He could have gotten you all killed. And to make matters worse, the ether you absorbed wasn't all of what Mist took from you, so your soul crystal is still broken. He apologizes for lying, but he promises that if you help him 4 more times, you'll have all of your ether back. The minute this kid moved the goalpost, I probably would have stabbed him and taken my ether like that, especially since he wants me to find the people for him to help, then use my ether to do it. Sid chastises him for his half-baked attempts at being a hero, but Mist swears that's not what he's trying to do. He just wants to give some peace to all of those people whose lives have been shattered by tragedy. And since he does have the Warrior of Light's ether, she can't really let him out of her sight, so you have to tag along with him for at least a little while. Knowing that you'll help him makes him feel better, and Riel assures him that even though Sid acts like a jerk, he's gonna stick around too. Which is true, but Sid didn't want Riel ruining his tough guy image. Since you've made your decision, you all head back to Falcon's Nest to figure out what you're going to do next, while Sid complains about the fact that he's more of a babysitter now than a Dark Knight, a job that is driving him insane. Riel tries to find out more about the mysterious Mist, but he won't say anything about himself, and he doesn't seem to like anything other than conjuring people's memories, something that Sid has no idea how he does, and since he can't figure out how the boy is doing it, he can't think of a way to take back your ether other than completing the boy's task. Since there's no choice other than to get it done, you head out to Tailfeather to see if you can find someone who needs help there. While the hunters in the area haven't experienced any real tragedies of their own, a prisoner named Loudy has been brought to the area to atone for her crimes by doing hard labor, but the man in charge of her is extremely brutal, beating the woman constantly, and having dealt with Ishgardian justice before, what's happening to her may not be justified, so you all go to see for yourselves. It's not hard to find the woman, you just follow the sounds of a man yelling. The fact that the woman is on her knees groveling and begging for forgiveness as the man screams at her makes it all the worse. But you do recognize the woman, and had it not been for Emmerich's intervention, she would have been put to death for what she did. Seeing the way that the proctor treats her makes Sid want to kill him, until you let him know that the woman was the one who drugged you and led the protest that nearly led to the end of the peace with the Dravanians. However, the fact that you never took revenge on her for what she did to you makes what the proctor is doing seems even worse. The only reason she was against the treaty was because her husband had died fighting the Dravanians, and Mist wonders if letting her see her husband again will help her, but Sid thinks doing that will hurt the woman more. Even so, he's adamant about doing it anyway, so Sid agrees to help. However, he won't have the boy summoning spirits in the middle of a crowd. He sends Riel and Mist into the woods while he frees the woman, since if you walk up to her with a giant sword, she might think you're there to kill her. The proctor is your target. If he's a good man, then give him a chance to ask for forgiveness for the way he treated his prisoner. If not, well, that's what the big sword is for. He is not sorry for what he did, so you bury him for his crimes and track down the others in time to see Loudy talking to the recreation of her husband. While she does talk to him, she knows that's not her husband and asks you to banish the thing. When she realizes that it was Mist that summoned it, she thanks him for what he tried to do and apologizes to you because she hated you for the simple reason that you fought the dragons and lived when her husband didn't. She heard stories of dark nights when she was little, and she wants you to keep fighting for people like her, but she doesn't want you to miss the time with your friends and family in between. To honor her husband, she decides to make the most of the freedom you gave her and leaves, letting you reclaim your ether. Mist feels terrible about the fact that he couldn't help her, but Sid tries to cheer him up by reminding him that he does have 3 more chances to get it right, so he should stop whining and try again somewhere else. And while the vision of her husband didn't make her feel better, what you said to her did. Despite this, Mist is scared of failing again, so Sid comes up with an idea that you never expect to hear from him. He wants to take Mist to the Mughals, since they helped him and Riel when they weren't on the best of terms. Even though they're extremely annoying, Sid promises to refrain from ripping their palms off of their heads and making them eat them, and Mist is seemingly enjoying the sights. The place is almost pretty enough to make him forget the troubles of the world. Almost. There's so much pain in the world and so much has been lost that even looking at the floating islands doesn't stop his guilt over not being able to help more people, and it's making him very bitter toward the world in general, something he's entirely too young to be. Apparently being alone with his thoughts wasn't helping to ease his conscience at all, so he decides to head back to Sid and Riel and continue his mission. Of course, that makes Cid happy because he can get away from the Mughals, but Riel wants to show Mist around. The two of them run off before Cid can stop them. The two of you chase after the kids, only to have some Mughals make the mistake of sneaking up on Cid, who beats them all unconscious for making them lose sight of the children. The two of you split up, and you find them standing near the area where the Mughals had pretended to kidnap Riel and made the two of you beat them up a while back. Riel's in the process of telling Mist the story of how the Mughals sang to try and show Cid how he hadn't fully understood what his master was telling him to do on his path as a Dark Knight. She even tells him about how Cid lost his family and was raised by his master alongside Frey, who died on him too. Cid was an angry guy back then, and while Riel tries to say that he's gotten better, his desire to murder the Mughals and curse proves that not so much. Since his master was so dear to him, when Cid arrives, Mist offers to summon the man for him. Cid thinks about it, then calls Mist a not so nice name before ordering him not to do it. He does it anyway, and Cid's master appears. He greets both you and Cid, and praises you for going so far as a Dark Knight on your own before you even met Cid, and he's proud of you both for bringing honor to the name of the Dark Knights, just like he had. He had once been a temple knight fighting Dravanians and leading men to their deaths again and again, until the faces of his fallen allies all blended together. When the people became nothing more than bodies for him to throw at his enemies, he had left the knights. It's a story Cid already knew, but what he didn't know was why his master had decided to become a Dark Knight and take on two children. It's a question Cid had asked before, and one that his master said he would understand when he was older and stronger. And since he asked the question again, his master decides to test him to see if he's strong enough to hear the answer. The master is no slouch, and he challenges you, Cid, and Riel all at once. Memory or not, the man is strong, but the three of you bring him down, despite the fact that Cid took some serious wounds during the battle. However, the fact that he took the wounds to protect the two of you earns him some praise and the answer that he sought. The reason his master had taken on two kids was to leave behind a legacy that meant something. He had helped people to make up for the deaths he had caused, but training a new generation of protectors was a much better way to help fix the world, and he would train the new generation to be better than he was. With that, he prepares to fade away, but not before giving you a few words of wisdom. People who fight for others will never know peace. Every choice you make brings death for someone, be it one of your enemies, a friend, or even yourself. That isn't something you can avoid, you just have to learn to live with it. Lastly, he tells Cid to be a little nicer to Riel and a little less of a jerk in general. Then he's gone, and you retrieve more of your ether. While Cid is upset that Mist didn't listen to him, he wants the boy to use this as a learning experience. Memories can be painful, and summoning them without someone's consent could be bad. However, he's grateful for getting the chance to see his master and fight him again, but his injuries are serious, so Riel takes him back to Mogholm. Seeing Cid actually heal emotionally after seeing his master makes Mist believe that there may be a little hope after all. However, I doubt his emotional healing will last, since he's too weak to travel and has to stay with the Mughals. He even asks you to punch one of them for him just to make him feel better, something that I have no problem with doing because the Mughals are annoying. While Cid recovers, you and Mist continue your mission of helping random people, something the Warrior of Light should be very skilled at by now. This time he wants to find some people who have been hurt by war, so you head to Garabania, a place that has known a lot of battles. There you find a soldier who you had met forever ago in Quarry Mill. He needed some medicine and Mefred had ordered you to get some for him. Instead of taking it all himself, Galleon had given some to a friend who needed it. His friend made a full recovery. Galleon didn't. Unfortunately, his friend ended up working with the Griffin and dying at Belsar's Wall, a story I'll cover when I do a recap of Heavensward. Despite his illness, Galleon outlived all of his friends, but now his disease has nearly claimed him and he's just sitting around waiting to die. Mist doesn't want to let a man who was willing to sacrifice his own life for a friend die so miserably alone, so he decides to summon Galleon's friend. The summoning works, and hearing his friend's voice, Galleon asks him to offer up a prayer for his fallen friends at the Reach, a request that Hodard is more than willing to honor. However, halfway there he shatters and returns to ether. A man's memories can't outlive him, and it seems that Galleon died before his memory could complete the task. Mist doesn't take this well, and although he says he's going to head back to Ishgard, when you get to the Forgotten Night, Cid and Riel haven't seen him, meaning you're going to have to track him down to get the last of your ether back. Since the last place you saw him was in Raga's Reach, you, Riel, and Sid head back there to search for your ether thief. One of the resistance members had saw Miss wandering around saying "forgive me" over and over before running off, leaving behind a lot of dead chocobos that seemed to have had their life force sucked out. When you tell Sid what you found out, he lets you know that a boy matching Miss' description had been seen leaving the Reach and heading toward the peaks, so that's your next destination. You pass more dead beasts that have no injuries on them, just like the chocobos in the Reach, which is strange since up until now Mist had only had one ability, and he couldn't fight at all, unless he was hiding other powers. And considering how he stole your ether when you first met, an ability he hadn't used since, there's no telling what else the boy was hiding. But Sid plans on finding out once you catch him, so the three of you split up to search faster. Sid and Riel track him down first and call out for you, but by the time you arrive, Riel is unconscious and Sid is down. Mist had attacked them, and whatever he had been drawing out of the creatures had made him a lot stronger. Not to mention the fact that the memory he decided to summon was Riel's crazy mother. Still not knowing what the boy plans, you demand that he explain himself, but instead he says that you are just as much the cause of what he's doing as he is because of all the people you have killed and the lives you've ruined. Your body count is enormous, and the excuse you use, calling what you do justice, doesn't change the fact that you're a murderer. And while you aren't blameless, the entire world filled with cruelty and hate has made murderers out of so many people. But Mist has finally come up with a solution. Instead of trying to heal people one at a time, he's going to make the world a place free of death, where whenever someone falls, the will of their loved ones will summon them back as one of his illusions. But to do that, he'll have to consume massive amounts of ether to fill the world with his illusions, a plan that Sid thinks is insane despite the fact that he agrees that the world is a cruel place. Regardless, he won't stand by and let Mist force his illusions on people just to make himself feel better, and neither will you. Realizing that you can't accept what needs to be done, Mist sends countless visions of people you have killed after you, taking note of how you seem to slaughter everyone who stands in your way, yet you still lose everything you tried to protect in the process, leaving behind nothing but the pain of your loss and failures. Finally getting tired of this little game, the Warrior of Light closes her eyes and summons the one person who had said the things that she had always wanted to say but didn't, her darker half, in the form of Frey. While yes, you do have a lot of sins, there aren't very many things that you truly regret. Frey tells Mist that a house divided cannot stand, and it's time for this pity party to end. Seeing his friend appear causes Sid to rightfully wonder what's going on, and in truth I think he is speaking for a lot of the audience, but that explanation will come soon. First, Sid tosses his sword to Frey as Mist summons more of your fallen foes for you to face, telling you that no matter how hard you fight, the day for you to pay for all of your sins will come. Something Frey says that he will welcome with open arms when it does, but that day's not today. Together, the two of you bring down the apparitions, and Mist breaks down, begging for forgiveness, something Frey tells him that he shouldn't seek. You should carry the burdens of your deeds. It's part of what's owed to those who've died. And the people who have fallen deserve to live on, but only in your hearts and memories. Saying goodbye is always painful, but it is something that has to be done, which is why you have to enjoy the time you have with those you care about, because no matter how many regrets you have, you can't get that time back. The only person that you should seek forgiveness from is yourself, and with those words, both Frey and Mist vanish, returning to where they belong, inside of you. Now for some, this story may be a bit confusing, so here's a brief explanation. Just like the manifestation of Frey was the Warrior of Light's darker half, the desire to say and do things that may have been frowned upon by others, Mist was the manifestation of your regrets, the guilt over the loss of so many friends and allies, and also your victims. The story was about the Warrior of Light's internal struggle with forgiving herself for all the things she's done and failed to do. That struggle just took place on the outside for everyone else to see. And yes, there's a very logical explanation for why you can summon these physical manifestations of your emotions and memories, one that will have to wait for another video. For now, this concludes the third part of the Dark Knight story. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next part of the story.